The signal that changed everything. The stars had never seemed so cold. Commander Sarah Chen stood before the observation window of Europa Base, watching Jupiter's massive form cast shadows across the ice moon's surface. She held a steaming cup of coffee, her third in the past 4 hours, trying to shake off the exhaustion that came with managing a research station at the edge of human civilization. The night shift was always quiet, usually peaceful, but that night would shatter every illusion of peace humanity had ever known. The communications array started screaming first, not the usual beeps and chimes of incoming messages, but a piercing wail that made every technician in the command center clap their hands over their ears. Sarah dropped her coffee, the liquid floating in the low gravity before splattering against the floor. She rushed to the main console where Lieutenant Marcus Webb was frantically trying to shut down the interference. "Commander, I can't stop it," Marcus shouted over the noise. "It's overriding everything. Every frequency, every channel, every device connected to our network. Cut the power to the array," Sarah ordered, her mind racing through protocols, already tried. "It's not coming from our equipment. It's coming from everywhere." The main screen flickered and suddenly the noise stopped. In its place came an image that would burn itself into Sarah's memory forever. The screen showed a massive arena, its architecture alien and grotesque, with curved walls that seemed to breathe and pulse with bioluminescent light. The camera panned across thousands of creatures, their forms varying wildly, some with multiple limbs, others floating in contained atmospheres, all watching something in the center of the arena, with what could only be described as anticipation. Then the camera focused on the arena floor, and Sarah's blood turned to ice. There, in reinforced cages that looked more like torture devices, were humans, men, women, and children from the outer colonies, their clothes torn, their faces marked with terror and exhaustion. Sarah recognized the uniforms, the colony patches. These were people from New Horizon, the settlement on Titan that had gone dark 3 months ago. Everyone assumed it was a technical failure, a reactor malfunction, something explainable. But this was the truth. A creature stepped into view and Sarah felt her stomach twist. It was massive, easily 3 meters tall, with scaled skin that shifted between deep purple and black. Its head was elongated, with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, each one gleaming with intelligence and something worse, amusement. When it spoke, a translation device rendered its words in perfect English, the voice smooth and mocking. "Behold, citizens of the Kadrath Empire and honored guests from across the civilized galaxy," the creature announced, spreading its 4 arms wide. "Tonight we present a new entertainment, a demonstration of superiority over the species that dared to call themselves explorers. These creatures, these humans, believed they could claim the stars. They built their fragile stations and called them colonies. They sent their weak bodies into the void and called it courage. The arena erupted in sounds that might have been laughter, though they came in forms human ears weren't meant to process. Clicks, whistles, deep rumbles, and high-pitched screeches blended into a symphony of cruelty. Sarah's hands gripped the edge of the console so hard her knuckles turned white. Beside her, Marcus had gone pale, his eyes fixed on the screen with the same horrified fascination that held everyone in the command center frozen. The creature moved to one of the cages and pulled out a young girl, no more than 12 years old. Sarah recognized her from the colony manifests. Emma Rodriguez, daughter of the chief engineer. The girl screamed, calling for her mother in a voice that cracked with desperation. The creature held her up like a trophy and the crowd's noise intensified. "This is what weakness looks like," the creature continued. "This is what happens to species that reach beyond their grasp. Let this be a lesson transmitted across all their frequencies. Let every human see what their ambition has earned them." What happened next would be the spark that ignited humanity's rage across every world, every station, every ship in human space. The creature's clawed hand moved with deliberate slowness and the girl's screams cut off with terrible finality. The camera held on her lifeless form for exactly 5 seconds, long enough for the image to sear itself into the minds of everyone watching. Then it moved to the next cage. The broadcast continued for 17 minutes. 17 minutes of systematic murder presented as entertainment. 17 minutes that changed everything. Sarah didn't remember giving the order to record everything. She didn't remember Marcus vomiting in the corner or the junior technician breaking down in tears. She only remembered the rage building inside her, a fire that started in her chest and spread through her entire body until she was shaking with it. When the broadcast finally ended, replaced by the smiling face of the creature delivering a final message, Sarah heard the words through the roaring in her ears. To all humans watching, know this. You are livestock. You are entertainment. You exist because we allow it. Resist and we will broadcast your deaths across the galaxy. Submit, and we might let some of you live as servants. You have one planetary rotation to decide. The screen went dark. For a long moment, nobody in the command center moved. Then the communications array came alive again, but this time with human voices. Calls from Earth, from Mars, from every colony and station in human space. Everyone had seen it. Everyone had witnessed the same atrocity. Sarah's personal communicator buzzed. She looked down to see a priority message from Admiral Richard Stone, commander of Earth's defense fleet. Her hands trembled as she accepted the call. The Admiral's face appeared, and Sarah had never seen him look so old. Lines of rage and grief had carved themselves deeper into his features. Behind him, she could see the chaos of Earth's military command center. Officers shouting orders, screens filled with data. Commander Chen. Stone's voice was rough, barely controlled. I'm assuming Europa Base received the transmission. Yes, sir, Sarah replied, surprised at how steady her own voice sounded. All of it. Then you know what we're facing. The bastards sent it everywhere. Every human settlement in the galaxy saw what they did to New Horizon Colony. They wanted us to see. They wanted us to be afraid. Sarah looked around her command center at the faces of her crew. She saw no fear there, only rage. Pure, burning rage that matched her own. Permission to speak freely, sir? Granted. They made a mistake, Sarah said, and she felt something crystallize inside her, something hard and unbreakable. They think they broke us. They think this will make us submit, but they don't understand what they've done. They've given us something we've never had before. What's that, Commander? A reason to stop fighting each other and start fighting as one species. They've united us, sir. Every human alive just witnessed the same atrocity. Every human alive just felt the same rage. They didn't break us. They forged us. Stone was quiet for a moment, then Sarah saw something change in his expression. The grief was still there, but something else emerged beneath it. Determination. Purpose. Rage transformed into resolve. I'm calling an emergency session of the United Earth Council, Stone said. But between you and me, Commander, I don't give a damn what the politicians decide. I'm putting the fleet on alert. I'm reaching out to every captain, every station commander, every human with access to a weapon or a ship. If they want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget. What are your orders, sir? Start organizing. Everyone you can trust. I have a feeling the official channels are about to become very crowded with people trying to negotiate our surrender. But there are others, people like us, who understand that there's only one response to what we saw. Make contact with them. Build a network. When the time comes, we'll need to move fast. Sarah met her eyes. Then we make them pay for every meter of space. We're not expecting to survive this, Doctor. We're expecting to matter. Every human watching will see what we did here. They'll see that resistance is possible. That will inspire others. The fire will spread. The room fell silent. These people had families, lives they had built across the colonies, but they had also seen the broadcast. They had watched children murdered for entertainment. And in that moment, Sarah saw the same decision crystallize in every face around the table. They had already made their choice weeks ago. This was just the culmination. When do we move? Morrison asked. 36 hours, Sarah replied. We'll only get one shot at this. Make sure your crews understand what we're doing and why. No conscripts. Everyone goes in with their eyes open. The meeting dispersed, captains returning to their ships, engineers to their workshops. Sarah remained in the war room, staring at the tactical display. Marcus stayed with her. You know this is going to start a real war, he said quietly. The politicians have been trying to keep things from escalating. This will push it past the point of no return. They started the war when they broadcast those murders, Sarah replied. They declared us livestock, entertainment. We're just making it clear that livestock doesn't fight back, but humans do. If the politicians want to surrender after this, they can. But at least the galaxy will know that some humans refused to break. Marcus nodded slowly. History's going to remember this one way or another. Good, Sarah said, and the rage that had sustained her for 3 weeks burned hotter. Let them remember. Let every species in the galaxy remember the day humans stopped running and started hunting. The next 36 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Ships were retrofitted, weapons were calibrated, and plans were reviewed until everyone knew their role perfectly. Sarah assembled her boarding team. 12 men and women who had volunteered for what was essentially a suicide mission. Among them was a young engineer named David Park, barely 22, who had lost his entire family on New Horizon Colony. "Commander," David approached her in the armory as they were suiting up. "I just want to thank you for doing this, for giving us a chance to hit back." Sarah looked at the young man, seeing the same rage and grief she felt reflected in his eyes. "Save your thanks until we succeed. This is going to be the hardest thing any of us have ever done." "I know," David replied, "but at least we're doing something. At least we're not just waiting to die." The attack began precisely on schedule. The commercial freighters entered the Mars orbital zone, their transponders broadcasting legitimate cargo manifests. The Cadrath patrols barely gave them a second glance, so convinced of their superiority that the idea of civilian vessels as a threat never crossed their minds. That arrogance would be their undoing. The moment the patrol shift changed, Captain Morrison triggered the resonance disruptors. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The shields around the Cadrath warships flickered and destabilized, the harmonics that held them together disrupted by frequencies the aliens had never encountered before, and then the mining vessels opened fire. Lasers designed to cut through asteroid. Rock tore into alien hull plating. Explosive charges meant to fracture ore broke against warship armor with devastating force. The mining vessels had been designed to withstand the harsh conditions of space, and now every tool became a weapon. The Cadrath responded with predictable military precision, but that precision became their weakness. They tried to establish defensive formations, to coordinate their fire, to follow established combat protocols. But the human vessels moved with chaotic unpredictability, breaking every rule of space combat, attacking from impossible angles, retreating when they should have pressed forward and charging when they should have fled. It was beautiful chaos, and it was working. Sarah watched from her assault shuttle as one of the Cadrath warships took catastrophic damage, its engine core detonating in a brilliant flash. The second warship tried to retreat, only to find itself surrounded by mining vessels that had no intention of letting it escape. "That's our cue," Sarah said to her team. "Hit it." The assault shuttle burned hard toward the Cadrath station, using the debris from the destroyed warship as cover. Point defense systems tracked them, but the station's attention was divided between the external battle and the approaching threat. Sarah's pilot weaved through incoming fire with skill born from years of navigating asteroid fields. They slammed into the station's docking port with enough force to breach the airlock. Sarah was first through, her weapon up, her team flowing behind her like a well-oiled machine. They had studied Cadrath station layouts for 3 weeks, and every turn, every corridor was exactly where they expected. The aliens inside were unprepared for a boarding action. They had shields, they had weapons, but they had never considered that humans would be crazy enough to board a military station during an active battle. That confusion gave Sarah's team the seconds they needed. They fought through the corridors with brutal efficiency. David Park proved to be an excellent shot, dropping 3 Cadrath soldiers before they could raise their weapons. A woman named Rachel Torres took point, her experience as a colonial security officer showing in every tactical decision. The aliens fought back, and Sarah lost 2 team members in the first 5 minutes. But they kept pushing forward, driven by rage that had been building for 3 weeks, by the memory of murdered children, by the desperate need to prove that humans were more than livestock. They reached the communications array after 12 minutes of vicious fighting. Yuki Tanaka's assistant, a young tech specialist, went to work immediately, his fingers flying across alien controls as he bypassed their security. "I'm in," he shouted over the sound of weapons fire from the corridor, patching us through to every frequency. Sarah stepped in front of the camera system, aware that in moments every human in the galaxy would see this. Every alien species monitoring human frequencies would witness this moment. She was covered in blood, both human and alien. Her armor was scorched and dented, but she stood tall, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of humanity's rage. "This is Commander Sarah Chen, broadcasting from the Cadrath station above Mars. 3 weeks ago, you murdered our people and called it entertainment. You declared us livestock. You gave us an ultimatum to submit or die. Here's our answer." Behind her, through the station windows, the battle raged. 2 Cadrath warships were now destroyed, and the third was crippled, limping away from the swarm of mining vessels that harried it like wolves bringing down prey. You thought we would break. You thought we would surrender. But you made one critical mistake. You forgot that humans are survivors. We crawled out of the caves and conquered a world of predators. We survived disasters that should have ended us. We reached for the stars knowing we might die in the attempt. That's who we are. We're the species that refuses to quit. Explosions rocked the station as the Cadrath tried to retake the communications center. Sarah's team held the corridor, but she could hear them falling back under heavy fire. To every human watching this, know that resistance is possible. Know that they can bleed. Know that we don't have to accept their judgment. We're humans. We fight back. We always fight back. She turned to look directly into the camera, and her eyes burned with the rage that had driven her for 3 weeks. And to the Cadrath Empire, to every species that thinks humans are weak, hear this. We're not your livestock. We're not your entertainment. We're your worst nightmare. We're the predators you thought were prey, and we're coming for you. The transmission cut out as a massive explosion tore through the station. Sarah's team had set charges throughout the structure, timed to detonate as soon as the broadcast ended. She had seconds to reach the escape pods. They ran through disintegrating corridors as the station tore itself apart. David Park fell to weapons fire, dying with a smile on his face because he had seen his vengeance broadcast across the galaxy. Rachel Torres didn't make it to the pods, choosing instead to hold a corridor so the others could escape. Sarah made it to an escape pod with 4 others, launching just as the station's reactor core went critical. The explosion lit up Mars' orbit like a second sun, visible from the surface, a beacon of human defiance that would never be forgotten. As the pod drifted toward a rescue ship, Sarah looked back at the wreckage. 2 Cadrath warships destroyed, 1 crippled, a station obliterated, and a message sent to the entire galaxy. The cost had been high, 37 humans dead, their ships destroyed or damaged beyond repair. But it had been worth it, because across human space the broadcast had been received. Millions of humans had watched Commander Sarah Chen, covered in blood and defiant, declare that humanity would not submit. They had watched civilian ships destroy military vessels. They had seen that resistance was possible, and in that moment the real war began. Not the war of politicians and diplomats, but the war of ordinary humans who refused to break. Miners became soldiers, freighters became warships, research stations became fortresses. The rage that had been building for 3 weeks exploded across human civilization like a supernova. The Cadrath had wanted to demonstrate their superiority. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous. They had united a species that had spent its entire history fighting itself. They had given humanity a common enemy and a common purpose. They had awakened the storm. And as Sarah's pod was recovered by human forces, as the galaxy processed what they had witnessed, one truth became undeniable. Humanity had declared itself, not as livestock, not as entertainment, but as a force that would not be broken. The stars themselves would burn with human rage before humanity accepted chains. And every species in the galaxy was about to learn what humans had known since they first looked up at the sky and decided to reach for it. They would never stop fighting. They would never surrender. They would never break. They were human. And that meant something now, something the galaxy would never forget. The war had just begun, and humanity had just shown the universe what it meant to awaken sleeping giants. The Cadrath wanted entertainment. They got a species that turned rage into revolution. They got humanity unleashed, and the storm was only beginning.